I think this morning, one of the things that came out of the sessions was it's very easy to make development complicated. It's very easy to run away with some of the thinking and for it to become this big thing that can be quite daunting. One of the things that Bond's trying to do is to take this bigger picture where you've got aid effectiveness, development effectiveness, CSO effectiveness, all kinds of things going on. And find out what's the bit that we can help our members with by biting off a bit that we can actually work on and get some traction with to do something in the field. And when Roy was speaking, there was a resonance there around the whole issue of organizational effectiveness. Because as a sister agency or organization to NIDOS, the area where Bond can make the biggest contribution to the bigger debates about effectiveness is around what NGOs do and around what we're beginning to call NGO effectiveness. And looking at that, we're beginning to take an organizational approach. So an effective organization is one that achieves its objectives and that has a degree of satisfaction amongst its primary stakeholders. Now, it's not up to Bond to decide what the objectives are. Each agency here is very diverse, and you have your own ways to do things, and one of the beauties of civil society is there is that diversity. So we're looking at it from an organizational perspective. Generally, NGOs exist to do one of two things: to bring about positive change in the South, or to advocate or educate in countries like the UK and Scotland to improve. Now, very early on, we're leaning towards making a strategic choice that will focus on the work in the South, because that's where the most money goes, and that's where we believe that over the 3 years this program runs, we're going to get potentially the biggest bang for our buck, if you like. A key question is, how can UK NGOs work more effectively in the South? Yeah? Historically, we've looked at vital supporting factors, and they've been our priorities. So things like maintaining our funding streams. That's legitimate, because if you haven't got resources, you can't do things. How efficient are we in terms of keeping our overheads down so that most money goes to the field? And that's a key issue as well. And then the other thing that we've slipped into is a project-by-project focus of reporting back to donors. Well, however, to increase the likelihood of having positive change in the South, we need to consider a number of things about development to keep it simple. One is that development is a long-term process rather than a series of one-off projects. It's obvious when you put it like that, but our organizational behavior often is, I've got this 3-year project, we need to do this, and then it's all finished, and then we'll go on to the next project. No, I think one of the values that NGOs bring to the picture is to make your projects part of a longer-term process on the ground. Difficult when your funding isn't reliable, but it's essential because we all know that it takes generations to change certain things in the South. So to expect a 3-year project to solve the world's problems is a bit hopeful, to put it mildly. The second thing I'd say is there's the golden rule of development, which was told to me by an old hand, one of the greybeards of development, you could say, which is that your project is only as good as the people on the ground that implement it. So we can think what we like about our project design, about how we treat communities, our values, our principles, but the people who go to the communities are the ones that actually affect that. Now, in a large organization, like the one that I used to work for, that becomes a big issue because you've got a lot of staff. But if you've got a smaller, maybe a 1 or a 2-person operation and you go to the field a lot yourself, maybe you've got an advantage there in that you don't have some of those issues around how to make sure that what goes on in the field is reflective of your wider organization's ethos. Another conclusion that flows from this is that we need to make an investment in building the organizational or institutional strength of our southern partners, because they're the ones that do the implementation. They're the ones that manage the projects. Whether you work through local partners, you've got your own operations, or you go visit and talk to the contractor who's building your school. It's at the field is where most happens. With that in mind, the NGO effectiveness program that we're launching wants to ask the questions that are necessary to equip UK agencies with the ability and the language to prove and improve their level of practice. And we're thinking that at the moment, probably a focus on how you can improve the work of your operational entities or partners in the South is probably the focus, because it's about the value add for NGOs, right? We're all here, we have to add something to what goes on in the South with our partners. We have to help them to do it better. Otherwise, the donors might as well give the money directly to them, unless the value we add is finding donors that wouldn't give otherwise. With that in mind, the Bond Effectiveness Programme, just briefly, is going to be looking at three main things, and they're on your handout, which are developing an NGO effectiveness framework. We all like frameworks in this sector and grids and things like that, but that's going to be something that's practical and that will be focused on helping and equipping those interested to help their partners in the field to do better work and to show the value add that they have. The next one is something around improving the participation and the relationships and the work with partners, which is becoming a major piece of most meetings I go to these days. And the final one, which is key, is developing a management agenda. Particularly in some of the larger organizations here, but also on the ground. Really, the managers are the ones that often make the key decisions. It's not about what's in the documents. And any work we do on principles or project design needs to have a supportive management agenda if it's going to happen. So, with that in mind, in the session today, we'll unpack a little bit more about what are the key things to look at in terms of NGO effectiveness, in terms of which part of a northern NGO's operation should be the focus. Because the one thing I'd say about this is the bond program isn't about me and a handful of selected experts deciding what you should do. It's going to be an inclusive process, because we're not really interested in what's produced on paper as much as what actually happens with that piece of paper, which is the key, and what happens with the product. So that's why it's going to take 3 years to get this process up and running and to get it applied and to get some gravity in the sector. And key to that is listening to what the members and what stakeholders such as yourselves think would be a useful thing. Because at the end of the day, the program is there. It's by NGOs for NGOs, basically. So that's what we'll be unpacking in the afternoon. Thank you.